Saw dudes, before officially beginning the build, I want to congratulate Ren, for winning the latest giveaway on the channel. I will be having more down the line, so don't worry. Also, I'm not partnered with DE in any way, so yeah, there's that. I've been wanting to create a Nekros Prime build because I believe he is one of the best frames for newer players. He offers insane versatility. At base, Nekros has an execute ability, built-in armor strip and crowd control, loot farming utility, and the capability of turning fallen foes into puppets to teabag enemies that stand in your way. This Warframe is perfect for new Tenno that need to get resources stockpiled, or seasoned veterans that need to let the undead do their bidding. Okay, less yapping and more build crafting. Let's get started. The game loop for Nekros is pretty easy. When the mission begins, activate his Desecrate ability for increased loot drops and health orbs. After that, kill enemies using your weapons, then activate Shadows of the Dead to summon them as allies. Use the shadows to keep enemies at bay and take out fodder. If you need to get some space, activate Terrify to get enemies off of you. Finally, if you don't replace Soul Punch, use that ability on enemies below 25% health to execute them immediately. Rinse and repeat. Today's video has two build variants, the double dip loot setup and the endurance setup for level cap. Both builds are extremely capable in Steel Path, but you will have an easier time with the endurance setup if you plan to go into long form missions. Additionally, I highly suggest installing an Aura Forma on Nekros Prime, given his extreme flexibility. It will make specialized builds a bit easier to configure down the line. First up, let's cover the double dip loot build. For this build, you will want to subsume Atlas's Petrify ability over Soul Punch. The Aura mod is up to preference, but I suggest taking Brief Respite for survivability. If you want to have a more passive playstyle, Rejuvenation is also a viable option. The Exilus slot is open to tons of options. However, I'm sure many of you will love to hear that Prime Sure-Footed is not one of the options. You can use Power Drift, Enemy Sense, or Cunning Drift. I prefer Cunning Drift for the extra range on abilities. Prime Continuity increases ability duration for Petrify, Terrify, and Shadows of the Dead. Shadows of the Dead will have its passive Shadow HP drain reduced, which means we don't need to recast it as often. Prime Flow increases energy reserves. This build is extremely energy inefficient, but regens energy quickly, so this is required. Rolling Guard offers invincibility frames for tougher content. If you get hit with damage over time procs while Shadows of the Dead is not active, just roll to get rid of it. Other options include Adaptation or a Catalyzing Shield for instant shield gate. Next up, we have Orgaze, Petrify's Augment. This augment allows enemies hit by Petrify to have a chance to drop extra loot on death and be scanned into the codex. This does work with Desecrate, allowing for 2 loot rerolls on kill. Overextended increases the angle of Petrify, the radius of Terrify, Desecrate, and Shadows of the Dead. This will make our abilities easier to use. Next, we have Blind Rage, which increases ability strength by 99% but reduces ability efficiency by 55%. The strength boost is necessary to increase loot drop chance from Orgaze, Armor Strip from Terrify, and Shadow Strength from Shadows of the Dead. Finally, we have Despoil and Shield of Shadows. Despoil converts the energy cost of Desecrate into health, giving us a bit more room to spam our other 3 abilities. Shield of Shadows grants damage resistance and status immunity, hence the reason why Prime Sure-Footed is not required. Next, we have the Endurance setup, which drops Petrify in favor of any number of different Helminth abilities. Helminth abilities will be discussed right after this build. We have the same base as the prior build. In the Aura slot, we have Brief Respite for shield gating. Again, you can use any other aura assuming you have an Aura Forma installed. Rejuvenation is the safest pick for a passive playstyle. Cunning Drift enhances ability range, but you could run Enemy Sense to highlight ads on the map for higher KPM. Prime Continuity and Prime Flow make up the core of the build by providing ability duration and energy reserves. Rolling Guard is my preferred defensive mod. Having 3 seconds of invincibility frames is indispensable when shield gating fails. Of course, you can always use Catalyzing Shields or Adaptation if you see fit. To regulate our energy economy, we will be using Equilibrium. The health orb spawned by Desecrate will provide us energy, allowing us to spam our abilities even more. This mod is not required, but will require Violet Archon shards if it is subbed out. Just like the last build, we have Blind Range and Overextended. This provides us with a large amount of ability strength and range, which affects all of our abilities. Finally, we have the 2 augment mods, Despoil and Shield of Shadows. Despoil lessens the strain on our energy bar by making Desecrate use health as a resource. Shield of Shadows grants up to 90% damage reduction for much better survivability. Alright, now let's cover the Helminth ability selections. All of these abilities will be subsumed over Nekros' first ability, Soul Punch. Also, if you feel the video has been helpful in any way, consider subscribing. It would be greatly appreciated. First off, we have Petrify, which was mentioned for the first build. This ability is used with its augment Orgaze to double dip loot drops on kill. Petrify itself is an amazing CC ability because it increases damage modifiers by plus 50% up to plus 100%. This makes all enemies more vulnerable to different types of damage, making resistances less troublesome to deal with. Next up, there's Nourish. Who would have thought? This ability is especially good on Nekros with Equilibrium since it multiplies the energy gains provided by health orbs. However, it also affects the shadows created by our 4th ability. Each time a shadow is attacked, it releases a viral explosion which knocks down nearby enemies. It also grants viral damage to the Shadow's attacks and our own, making them great primer minions. Even with the incoming nerf, this will be a staple subsumed ability on Nekros. Roar is also a great option, especially for those using a Panzervolpa Phyla with viral quills. Roar acts as a universal Bane mod, which double dips damage over time effects applied to enemies. Nekros favors slash-weighted weapons because it can dismember corpses, resulting in more loot. Roar, with enough power strength, will allow our weapons to scale into level cap easily without having to use Bane mods on our weapons. Other good options are Elemental Ward and Breach Surge, but they don't really have the same synergies as the aforementioned abilities. Let's cover some arcane options. At the time of writing this video, there seems to be some disagreement on the best arcanes to stick on Nekros given his insane flexibility. The options that I think are the best are Arcane Avenger, Arcane Blessing, Arcane Reaper, and Multi-Augmented. Arcane Avenger is great for increasing crit chance for all weapons upon being damaged. The Arcane provides a 21% chance whenever we receive damage to increase the critical chance of all attacks by 45% flat for 12 seconds. Since we have Shield of Shadows and survivability mods, we can make good use of Avenger without having to worry about taking a dirt nap. Arcane Blessing is a staple for Nekros. Each health orb will increase maximum health for the rest of the mission on pickup. This is pretty nice for taking the edge off since the spoil can eat up most of your health very quickly. Arcane Blessing is not required, but it is a nice bonus to have. Arcane Reaper is used for melee focused loadouts. Those who don't want to use Arcane Blessing might find this arcane more fitting. The health regen after a melee kill is great for negating the health drain from Desecrate, and the armor bonus acts as a nice buffer should shields go down. Think of Arcane Reaper as a hybrid of Grace and Guardian for Berserkers. Finally, we come to Multi-Augmented. This is the only arcane that I will say is mandatory. It grants additional ability strength on kill, which offsets the negative from overextended. This additional ability strength allows Terrify to fully strip armor after a couple of kills and makes kills against tougher units much easier. The extra strength also scales with Helminth Options and Shadow bonuses. In the footage, I used Multi-Augmented and Arcane Blessing. I like this setup because it's really laid back and allows for the easiest experience. Of course, you can always use arcanes that buff weapon damage, but remember to keep Multi-Augmented on there. For level cap setups, I would recommend taking crit focused weapons and possibly using Arcane Avenger. Mix and match and see what you like. Now let's talk about focus schools. Nekros is amazing for allowing the player to choose what they want. I will not be discussing waybound abilities since they are available to all schools after unlocking and should be unlocked first to ease gameplay. Let's start with Unairu, the focus school that I'm using in the footage. This focus school offers a free 200 armor for the operator and Warframe via Stone Skin, which is a nice bonus. It also grants access to Magnetic Flare, which creates a field that disables the shields of any enemy that enters it. Finally, you also have Caustic Strike, which strips armor from all units, including Acolytes and Demolists. Terrify lacks the ability to strip higher tier units, so it's not redundant and actually useful. For those who just want their shadows to do all the work, use Madurai. Madurai has Phoenix Talents, which increases physical and operator damage by 30% at max rank. Again, slash damage is incredibly important for Nekros, so this is a very welcome buff. Next, we have Power Transfer, which increases amp crit damage upon switching to the operator, and ability casting speed when switching to the Warframe. Nekros has horribly long casting animations, so if you don't intend to use Amber Archon shards later on, this is right up your alley. Void Strike offers weapon nuking capabilities through an additive 1000% damage buff. This can be useful in level cap runs. Finally, we have Sling Strength, which is activated after 2 consecutive Void Slings. It grants 40% ability strength for 20 seconds, giving our Shadows and Helminth ability even higher buffs. The last focus school is for those who want the most amount of safety. Vazarin offers great survivability and can make level cap runs an absolute cakewalk. Mending Soul grants 4 instant revives for the operator and Warframe for a combined total of 8. Revives after all instantaneous ones are 100% faster. If you need to pick someone up yesterday, this perk is invaluable. Guardian Shell creates a frontal barrier for our operator and Warframe and acts like Iron Skin, which allows for some breathing room when under fire. Then there's also Guardian Break, which kicks in after Guardian Shell breaks, increasing shield regen rate by 150% and reducing regen delay by 80%. This is good for shield gating, but can be burst through. The final cherry on top is Protective Sling, which grants full damage immunity to our own Warframe and others for 5 seconds upon void slinging through them. All of these focus schools are viable, so it's up to you to choose which one best suits your use case. As usual, I encourage you to try each one out and see what you like. Alright, we're getting close to the end. Archon shards are a nice bonus for Nekros, especially if you are planning to use the Petrify build. Let's start with the Violet Archon shards. Since the Petrify build lacks equilibrium, it can suffer from energy economy issues. Violet Archon shards cause health pickups to grant 20% energy and energy pickups to give 20% health. This alone is great for keeping energy reserves up. I recommend using at least 2 regular shards even if you use equilibrium for better energy management. Alternatively, you can use the melee critical damage buff from Violet Shards since our total energy reserves are above 500. I would still prioritize using the Equilibrium buff first though. To fix Nekros' abysmal casting speed, we can take advantage of Amber Shards. Each one can grant 25% casting speed or 37.5% with the Tau Forge version. I highly suggest using one since it can make shield gating a ton easier. My final recommendation is to use any of the Crimson Shard bonuses. Ability strength and duration are nice to have, but so are primary status chance, secondary crit chance, and melee crit damage. These shards can fill up the remaining slots if you want. In my loadout in the footage, I chose to use 1 Tau Forge Amber Shard and 2 Tau Forge Violet Shards. The Amber Shard increased casting speed, and the Violets acted as additional Equilibriums. There are 2 more open slots where I plan to use more Violet Shards for the Equilibrium passive or melee crit damage bonus. Use what you like. Okay everyone, bear with me, we're nearly done. I want to talk about some of the weapons you should consider when playing Nekros. Desecrate counts each dismembered body part from enemies as a separate corpse. If only Ashley Graves could help us. Anyway, dismembering corpses is fairly simple. Just use weapons that primarily deal slash damage. I suggest using melee weapons for this since they don't require ammo and can slice enemies easily right after death. The melee weapons I would use are Guandao Prime, Praetos, Cronin Prime, or Nakata Prime, just to name a few. If you want, you can also use the Ripkas with the Amalgam Ripkas True Steel mod. This mod allows other weapons to dismember corpses and is nice to have, albeit unnecessary. Just be sure to have at least one slash-weighted weapon, and you'll be set, just like the Grave siblings, I think. And that is everything you need to know about Nekros Prime. I'm very happy that I finally got around to making a Nekros Prime build since he is a frame I fell in love with once again. I actually run him when I play with viewers so that they can get some bonus resources. Whether you're a veteran or a baby Tenno, give him a try. I hope you all enjoyed the builds. As always, thank you all for watching and happy farming.